to order the regular meeting of the Nashoba Regional School Committee on October 22nd, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. So our first matter is a Pledge of Allegiance. So if you would like to join me, please rise and recite with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag for the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, hi everybody. So we have citizens' comments next, but I have not received any people looking to comment. So we're going to move ahead to the consent agenda. And I wonder if Amy has made it yet. Maybe not. So I will make the motion for the consent agenda. I move to accept the oh, hold on one second, guys. My computer just flaked. Sorry, y'all.
Consent agenda of October 22nd.
Yeah, okay, it just loaded. I don't know what happened. All right, I'll move to approve the consent agenda of October 22nd, 2025. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Jackie. So we'll go around the room. I vote yes. Jackie?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Robin?
Yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
Shondor?
Yes.
Thanks, Shondor. John?
Yes.
Jillian?
Yes.
Lindsay?
Yes.
I think I got everybody who's here. All right, everybody. So that consent agenda has passed. Let's move on now to our school committee chairperson update. I have nothing new to share with you all. So then we're going to move to our next item, moving right along, and that is our student representative report. I do see Ryan. Hi, Ryan.
Hello, I can see Maria like clicking the link on our document right now to get in here. So
Excellent.
I can start off and hopefully she's able to pop in there. So we have our first superintendent and principal student advisory council meeting tomorrow, which Maria and I will both be attending. So definitely looking forward to that. Senior Sunrise is on Friday, as well as the homecoming game, and then homecoming on the Saturday to follow. We're kind of in the middle of Spirit Week. Today was Jersey themed. Tomorrow is students dressed like teachers, teachers dressed like students, which should be a fun one. Q1 is ending on the 31st. Different athletics have been holding their senior nights and pink games for breast cancer awareness. And Maria and I just this Saturday went to the Massachusetts Association of Student Representatives Delegate Assembly and it was a good attendance. I think there was 40 student representatives from across the state. Um which was awesome. I ran a workshop there on like sort of the different practices of being a student representative. So like specifically interacting with your community, and then sharing that information with the administrators, and then eventually with the school committee. I I ran for election for the executive board, which I got. So now I'm on the executive board for Massachusetts Association of Student Representatives, which should be cool. And I got chosen as the chairperson for that board. There's like 5 other people on it, which is awesome. I don't want to speak for Maria if she's still joining in here, but I know she's told me she had a good time and she was thinking about running for a director position similar to what I did last year as a junior, which is cool. Um, give her another second, but yeah, it was cool.
Ryan, can you tell us a little bit more about like maybe other workshops that you went to at that conference?
Yeah, I can walk you through the whole day. So we got there in the morning, and there was just like kind of a check-in. I had known some people from the last delegate assembly, which is cool to kind of check up with them from last year. And we started off the chief of staff gave sort of a presentation on what the association was, and for those who don't know, basically it's a group of student representatives across Massachusetts who organize different legislative efforts for the state. So at that same meeting this weekend, the organization chose 3 bills to focus on that are in the state house right now. And so the one that we're going to be prioritizing for the next until the next assembly, which is like another 5 months or so, is a bill that requires financial literacy curriculum across all the high schools, and it gives funding and just some funding for that. So that was the most popular across the organization, which they voted. And then the next one, this one um we voted to do more research into as an organization, which was one of the cell phone policies. So we're gonna further look into that and see what like our stance is as an organization on it. Um, and then the final one on that has been like kind of a I think it's gotten shut down the last few years. But the organization is working with um a group of scholars at Harvard University who like advocate for the different bills, and it's the student representatives voting rights on school committee. That's the bill. So they still want to try to keep that one alive and keep pushing for that, which would kind of make a uniform process for getting students onto the school committee across the state, and then giving them each a vote. So we did talked about that was a big chunk of the day. And then the other workshops were from the other directors in the association. So there's one on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how you can kind of go about carrying that on as a student representative. There's like kind of the basic financial literacy, so everyone can kind of understand the budgeting process and all of that. And there's my workshop, which I already talked a little bit about.
That sounds like an amazing day. Thanks for that.
Of course, and I'm happy to answer any questions or comments.
Yeah, I do see that Maria has arrived. Hi, Maria. I'm so sorry that we raced to your report and we probably took you off guard a little bit.
Yeah,
Sorry,
Maria,
I was
Ryan-
late.
I was just telling him about the assembly. You want to like tell him a little bit about what you thought of it?
I mean, as my first time, it was an amazing experience. I met so many people. I saw so many points of views from other schools and other places in Massachusetts. It was amazing. It was a really good experience.
Mhm. And then you
That's
said
awesome.
you might look a little into the legislative director one.
Yeah, I was looking into it. It sounded really fun.
Superintendent Downing's got a little hand emoji over there.
Yeah, go ahead. Rick.
Ryan, I can wait until if you and Maria are done with your report.
We're good.
I wanted to express to the committee, Ryan and I have been trading some emails this week. And when he informed me that he was elected chairman of the executive board, Ryan, we can't be more proud of you. To watch you come onto the committee last year as a junior, how you have matured to be the leader that you are. You participate in the superintendent advisory with Maria. We'll see you guys tomorrow. I know we're going to work on the time capsule for the new high school tomorrow. So I wanted to applaud Ryan's work and have a chance to celebrate him and honor him. Because Ryan, I think you can be quite humble about those things, and we just want to let you know you're doing a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And Maria, let's get involved.
Yeah, well
So
done.
I'm glad to hear that you're looking at the legislative arm. That's the committee I participate on with my network, so we can swap notes.
Yeah, it was really interesting. It sounded really interesting. I sent an email to Claire to talk about. I had some questions, so I just sent her an email.
That's great.
Awesome. Does the committee have any questions about the goings on? All right, so I hope you guys have a great homecoming this weekend.
Thank
And thanks for being here and bringing us all this great information. And congrats to both of you for being statewide leaders and representing Nashoba. We appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys. So as always, you're free to stay, but you can also do what you need to do. I'm sure you got lots to do. We're going to move the agenda now to the next item, which is the superintendent's report, and I'll turn it over to you, Kirk.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I ask you to consider without objection. We have an item to add that's not on the agenda that happened this afternoon. And I would turn it over to Mr. Mulcairn for a brief update on center school. So Mr. Mulcairn?
Yeah, and if I could just remind the community and the committee that this is something that is spur of the moment. We wouldn't have had the ability to anticipate putting it on the agenda. This is something that open meeting law does make an exception for. So even though this isn't on the agenda per se, it's going to get tucked into the superintendent's report, and Ross can share with us what's going on.
And you'll understand why. So Mr. Mulcairn, go ahead.
Yeah, and I'm happy to be brief given the rest of the agenda. So simply put, we experienced an issue with the water supply at Center School this afternoon. Our technicians have assessed the situation, and repairs will occur over the next few days in anticipation of full return to normal operations on Monday. In the meantime, while the bathroom fixtures are online, we'll be doing any necessary cooking at Hale, and bottled water will be supplied to staff and students as needed, as well as encouragement for them to bring their own water bottles. A notice went out approximately 30 minutes ago to the school community and staff, making aware of what I just shared with you. So hats off to Mr. Frieswick and the facilities team for responding quickly, and we were able to identify the issue and not interrupt school operations tomorrow. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mulcairn. Madam Chair, this may be the least you hear from me in a meeting this year, actually. In your packet, there's an updated enrollment report. There's no new information based on the update I gave you all last month, last meeting, but I did receive a request from the community around breaking it down by town at Nashoba Regional High School. So that's just simply been added to the report, and it's included in the meeting materials. And next I will turn it over to Mr. Mulcairn to talk about the FY26 budget adjustment.
Yeah, so thank you again. This is my planned portion of the evening. So the following is being shared in preparation for the Chapter 70 FY26 budget adjustment that you'll see in your agenda under unfinished business this evening. So as you'll recall, last month, we presented the updated Chapter 70 funding that was approved through the state budget process that culminates in the summer. We also shared with you the subsequent guidance that we received from DECA on prescribed options that regional districts may take on that additional funding. In order to address the options available to the school committee, you'll recall that recommendations were presented in my memo to this body as well. So as we requested, the Budget and Warrant Subcommittee stated their preference at their meeting last week, and that is reflected in the NRSD FY26 Chapter 70 Amended Revenue 102225 document that's posted within this evening's materials. And the revenue source is on page 22, and we can certainly go to that page as part of the review later on. The Chapter 70 funding line has been increased by an additional $225,375, which was approved by the state budget, and the excess and deficiency appropriation for FY26 has been reduced by the same $225,375 to $1,174,625, down from $1.4 million. Again, approval by vote of the committee this evening would only adjust the revenue sources and leave the operating expenses untouched. There is no impact on member town assessments previously approved by this committee and each of the member towns at their annual town meetings last spring. We would be notifying the towns of the amendment should it pass. However, it is simply an FYI. There's no statutory consideration by the member towns to vote on the budget again.
So we will be coming to that later in the agenda as well, Ms. Viverito. And so at this point, it's time to come into our updates on strategic work. And I would like to bring forward our Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning, Laura Friend. Our feature tonight is our MCAS presentation. And I don't want anyone to be alarmed by the large number of slides that are in the presentation. They're mostly for your information only to look through as support information. And Laura's ready for a good tight 10 on presenting this year's MCAS data. So Assistant Superintendent, take it away.
Thank you, Superintendent Downing. Truth be told, Superintendent Downing has me on a stopwatch. So I'm sweating over here. But I'm going to do my very best to keep it tight and just present to the committee an overview of analysis and some important takeaways. I think that will very much be just a review of what the committee is already aware of, but reinforces our work. So I'm going to ask Almeida to drive the car, and I think she's going to present for me. So as Alida is teeing that up, thank you, Alida. I just wanted to thank the committee for allowing me a bit of time tonight to present our 2025 Nashoba MCAS results. We look to MCAS to really help support our continual improvement efforts. And we are using the information from MCAS to help inform our next steps as we support our students' learning and growth. Of note, as Superintendent Downing had mentioned, there are multiple components and facets of MCAS data. Work at the school-based level is happening right now and has been happening, drilling down with these data, both with a curriculum lens and a student growth lens. Tonight's presentation really is intended to provide a macro picture of our district data and a high-level overview of our results and our next steps. We've included a pretty dense presentation and a hearty appendix, which we provide to the committee and our community for more detailed information as a means of reference. So next slide. The next slide shows how the presentation is structured. Again, not my intention to go through each slide in detail, but we will spend a bit of time on the highlights and the takeaways. Next slide, Alida. This slide here provides a reference to accountability information. The Massachusetts Accountability System is designed to measure how a school and a district is doing and what kind of support a district may need. Nashoba's classification has been identified as making moderate progress towards targets and not requiring assistance. And I provided a hyperlink within the slide deck for more detailed information about specifics relative to accountability for the committee. Let's see, the next slide provides an overview of our statewide performance against our district performance, structured by ELA and math and science. In all areas, the district performance outpaced the state performance in grades 3 through 8. We exceeded the state performance by at least 15%, and in grade 10, 12%. Major takeaways here with performance in grades 3 through 8. The state performance increased in the percentage of students meeting and exceeding proficiency for ELA and remains steady for math and science, again in 3 through 8. As a district, we increased in both ELA and math, and we actually saw a decline in science, and that decline in science in 3 through 8 is attributed to grade 5. We actually saw a bit of an increase in grade 8. At the high school level, both the state and our district saw a decrease or a decline in all areas. Next slide. This chart shows the number of students falling within each proficiency category for each assessed area, and that is math, ELA, science, and this year the addition of civics in grade 8. Notable here in grades 3 through 6, it's one sentence. Thanks, Alida. In grades 3 through 6, math proficiency outpaced ELA proficiency, and in grades 7, 8, and 10, ELA proficiency outpaced math. Next slide. The next two slides, if you move on, Alida, provide information about cohort performance. These are cohort graphs, which show performance for our students in the same grade level or group over the course of time with us at Nashoba. These are helpful graphs for us to understand and take a look at as we are working for continual improvement for each of our grade level groups. With that said, I would just like to address a note of caution to our community to exercise caution when looking and comparing scores from the spring of 2021. Administration 2021 was the year I know I remember very well. That was the year that we had just come out of hybrid learning, and students in grades 3 through 8 actually had a truncated MCAS assessment. So a note of caution there as well. These cohort graphs we pulled from our Open Architect dashboards, which have been incredibly helpful for our district. There are some small discrepancies with the percentages noted in some small areas here, no more than 1 or 2 percentages, but I just wanted to make a note to the committee that there are some small discrepancies there. Nonetheless, these graphs are helpful for us to monitor growth over time for our students. A word of note here, and we see it again in math. You can stay here, Alita. Thank you. We're seeing the most visible cohort gains in our upper grades, particularly at our middle level this past school year. And we are paying particular attention to last year's 5th graders, this year's 6th graders, where we saw a decline in performance for that cohort. And so we're paying particular attention to them this year with our building principals and our school-based teams. The next series of slides provides information about ELA, MCAS performance, math, science, and civics, beginning with ELA. From this bar graph here, you can see the percentage of students meeting or exceeding expectations for each grade level. This information outside of grade 3 is similar, if not the same, to the cohort graph that we just saw. And so that is ELA. And I provided just a bit of an analysis here again at the macro level on this slide. While we know and we see that Nashoba's performance outpaced state averages at all grade level, there's definitely room for us to improve. Nashoba prides itself on continual improvement, and we're committed to that goal. Of note here, in 2024, last year, reading and language were identified as key areas for improvement, where writing we saw was a relative area of strength. This year, 2025, we saw meaningful progress in reading across grade levels in grades 3 through 8 when we pulled apart instructional analysis from the assessment, particularly with students' ability to integrate ideas and information, which we see as very strong, transferable, and important skill for our students. And I think we're beginning to see the connection with our newly adopted high-quality instructional materials there. Language and writing remains an ongoing area of focus and really is reflective of the synthesis of skills that are required for students to write, and this will become and remain a continued focus for us this year. In terms of subgroup performance, and the district has been committed to monitoring growth for our subgroups. We provided that information in the appendix. But there's some areas here to celebrate for our subgroups that we have made improvement and working to close the achievement gap for all but 2 of our subgroups in ELA, which is something to celebrate. And that includes our students with disabilities and our high need students. The gap for our low income students continues to close, and for our Black students, it is now nearly eliminated. However, work is to be done. For our Hispanic students, that subgroup performance declined, and our English learners, language learners subgroup continues to experience the greatest need and challenge with the widest and still increasing gap. And this is going to carry over into math performance as well. We see similar patterns. So moving on to slide 13, Alita, and moving into into math, sorry. The the bar graph that preceded this slide shows the percentage of students meeting or exceeding expectations for each grade. Again, we're seeing relative similarity as we're seeing some growth towards the upper grades, but we're really seeing some nice progression of growth in math across the grades, and we are working to attribute this to the high quality instructional materials that we've implemented in K-5 and seeing progress there. In grade 5, we have, this year's 6th graders, we are watching them and noting that we need to make sure that we're monitoring their progress. Of note here, we do see that they increased in an important domain, and that is numbers and operations fractions, which we know is a really critical skill for Algebra 1 readiness. So that is a shimmer of light there. Grade 6 saw the most notable gains, both for the grade level and for the cohort growth. And we have provided some other areas of note here that we thought noteworthy, including areas in need of improvement for 4 and 5. And as I had mentioned in ELA, the note of improvement areas for our subgroups. So moving on to science, I'm going to catch up with Alida. Lost track there. If you move on to the next slide, we're going to review science. Again, as I had mentioned earlier, this bar graph shows the performance at each grade level and how we performed over time. Again, I had mentioned that we had seen a slight increase in grade 8 and a decline in grade 5 and 10, which we'll talk about on the next slide. In terms of an analysis here, while the district performance outpaces the state averages at all grade levels, we did see performance decline in grades 5 and 10. 5th grade results decreased in all domains except for technology and engineering, and I'll talk about how we're addressing this in the next steps further on in the presentation. As a committee will remember, this year will mark the first full year of implementation for high quality instructional materials at the middle level, and that's Open SciEd, which we're very excited about to have full implementation there. We are seeing early signs of improvement there with our middle level improvements in science practices, which are critical and will help our students as they enter and experience high school science, and that's suggesting positive momentum from our new curriculum. An area of note, and this connects with social studies, we are seeing probably no surprise to our community and to myself and maybe to the committee, but our students perform better on multiple choice types of questions than selected or than constructed response questions. And so making sure that our students are presenting their ideas in writing across domains and having opportunity for explicit instruction and practice to explain their reasoning and using evidence in writing across the content areas we'll see as the next step. Okay, next slide. Civics, MCAS performance. We have one data point because the assessment was new to our 8th graders last year. On this slide here, I have provided what the test measured. The test measured student understanding across several domains. I've listed those for the committee here, as well as civics practices also listed here. Nashoba's performance exceeded the state across all domains and practices, but similar to science, constructed response, those are the ones that required writing in response to text, presented the greatest opportunity for growth for our students, indicating a continued need to strengthen our students' ability to explain their reasoning and support claims with evidence, which we know is a hard skill and an important life skill. All right, moving on to next steps. And I've divided this up into literacy, math, social studies, and civics. And as you can see, we have quite a few next steps listed here. But many of these action steps that I've shared with you here have also been shared with the committee and with our community through teaching and learning reports over the past school year. We've just brought them together here to highlight how they connect directly to our areas of strength and our opportunities and our continued commitment for continual improvement on behalf of our students. Our next steps in terms of literacy really focus on 3 key areas. First, strengthening foundational literacy instruction for our students in K-2 by ensuring consistent use of evidence-based instructional materials, ensuring access to the core literacy domains, phonics, phonemic awareness, and those foundational literacy skills, as well as leveraging all of the resources and support, fiscal and otherwise, as a PRISM 1 district. Second, emphasizing early identification of students in need at the earliest moment possible, K-2 and beyond, and timely response by using our screening measures, our classroom data, our PLC work, our win time, and our early literacy tutors that we're fortunate to be able to add as a means of support this year. And third, continuing to strengthen writing, language, and conventions through the implementation of instruction materials. This year, we are implementing additional language and literacy block in grades 3 through 5. That's part of our EL curriculum, but is implementing for the first time this year. Patterns of power in grades 3 through 6, which supports grammar, usage, mechanics, sentence conventions, and just helps support students' writing fluency. And work began last spring with our 6 through 12 writing working group to even further strengthen analytical writing skills, grades 6 through 12 with a vertical lens. And that work will continue. In fact, our 6 through 12 group is meeting this Friday together during the early release for math. Our math next steps focus on continuing to maintain and strengthen coherence and consistency in instruction K-12. Again, we've provided the committee with updates throughout last year and this year. At the elementary level, we are continuing to support our Bridges in Mathematics. That's our K-5 curriculum, including the intervention and enrichment components. And we are piloting the 3rd edition of Bridges in grade 2 this year. Our K-2 and our 3 through 5 math coaches are working directly with teachers to support and strengthen instruction and provide guidance around targeted instruction and intervention for our students who need a bit more. In middle grades, as the committee is aware, with Ms. McBrady presenting at the last committee meeting, we're steadfastly supporting our implementation of our new materials in 6 through 8, supported by coaching and professional learning. And we will be using at the middle level common assessments, collaborative planning, and professional learning, and on the spot coaching to monitor student learning and support our teachers. And at the high school level, the curriculum review process is underway and pointing to a focus on Algebra 2 and geometry, while continuing to monitor and support implementation of Algebra 1. Next slide, science. At the elementary level, we are looking to see the updated 2025-2026 K-5 master schedule, now reflecting highlighted, dedicated, and consistent time for science and social studies each week. Curriculum units have been developed, and teaching and learning will be working with school teams to monitor pacing and the effectiveness of the newly developed units that are aligned with our frameworks to support implementation, consistent implementation, and support for our teachers throughout the year. As I had mentioned at the middle level, we will have completed full implementation of Open SciEd. And this year, at the middle level in our science work, our teachers are engaging in professional learning to support something called SCAPE, which is an acronym, which really is designed to provide accommodated materials that reflect high expectations and levels of rigor for each and every student, but to support our diverse learners and to deepen their understanding of assessments and performance tasks. And at the high school level, our curriculum work continues to align biology, chemistry, and physics with the NGSS, emphasizing cross-cutting concepts and science practices. And we'll come back around with the committee with the chair's permission to provide an update on how that is going at a later date. And with this being the first year of the civics assessment in grade 8, we're just monitoring and supporting our teachers. Again, they too are coming together during an early release professional development time this year, sharing best practices, but we're continuing to monitor the work there. And then finally, the last slide is these are just the systemic structures that the committee and our community are aware of that we put in place to support our teachers in supporting the learning of and for our students, and just serve as a reminder of the work that we are engaging in at the system-wide level to support the work at our school-based and our grade level. And then finally, a note of the appendix. The appendix includes more specific information about accountability, achievement by subgroup, cohort graphs by grade level, and then school-based data. And I would just reinforce, and you can kind of go back to the question slide if you will, Alita, that our principals are working with their school councils to unpack these data with their school councils and to talk with them and with their school-based teams about next steps and what the data means at the school-based level. Okay. That concludes the very quick paced presentation. And thank you for your patience. There's a lot of information, and I appreciate the committee's patience with me and with moving through so much that really is so important to teaching and learning, and I know to our teachers and to our families and our students. But that's the sense at the macro level of what it's looking like for us right now.
Thanks so much for that, Laura. It was spot on. So I wonder if the committee, if anybody has any questions for Laura, anything you want clarification on, or. I know it was a lot to take in, but I'm sure you guys looked this over before. I guess one question I have for you, Laura, and you did touch upon it, but I just wanted to point it out again, is that I am concerned about the performance. Okay, so let me put a caveat on my statement and say that in last November, the state of Massachusetts voted to no longer make the MCAS a graduation requirement. That was by ballot initiative. And so you can assume, and I think we can assume, that some of the decline in the performance is due to, kids understanding that the test is no longer mandatory to pass. But if you put that aside, I am finding that the performance of our students with disabilities is still remarkably high, or the failing grades, the not meeting expectations is really high. Do you agree with that? And I'm just looking at 10th grade because I think that that's the one that I've always considered to be the most important. What do you think about this, Laura? What do you make of it?
Well, I always take on all questions, but we have Ms. DeManch here who may be a more appropriate respondent. We work very closely together. So if I may, with the chair and the superintendent's permission, and I don't want to put Ms. DeManch on the spot, but I know she's been working very hard at the high school level to support our students with disabilities, because the intention, and I'll just preface this if I may, the intention of high quality instructional materials, which you've heard me say kind of probably now ad nauseum, is to really lift and provide high expectations for each and every student with high levels of support so that each and every student can achieve at high levels. And so that is our intention with getting the high quality instruction materials in our teachers' hands. That includes like illustrative math at the ninth grade level for math. Baked into the cake is high quality differentiated supports within the curriculum. So that question in part is a reason why we are working so steadfastly to make sure that our teachers have high quality instructional materials from tier 1 at the core. And I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Demange to complete my answer about
And
what's going on there.
Yes.
Rowan, before you jump in, I wonder if we could just clarify. When we say students with disabilities, this includes all students on IEPs and 504s? Or
No,
just IEPs?
IEPs.
Just IEPs. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And it includes all students that are in all our programming or out of district as well. So it includes all the scores. But as Laura said, it's a continuum. And so it's really a tiered system. And part of what the student service department is focusing on is really creating a clearer through line from the access to the general ed environment to very clear tiered instruction with the appropriate data collection. And so Laura and I have been working really closely, especially with literacy and trying to create that through line. And as you saw in mathematics, we still have quite a gap to go, but we have a plan in place around the specialized instruction and looking at the data and really trying to have high expectations for our students because the closest access to the core instruction is really going to improve a lot of just the knowledge for all our students. So we do have work to do. Our teams continue to look at that data and make those improvements.
Okay. So I appreciate that. I think that's more or less a general response. So I think we're not going to get into the weeds tonight, obviously. I'm glad that you guys are aware and targeting it and recognize it as a problem. I think that my biggest concern is that as this test potentially starts to fall away, I wonder how we're going to collect this data in an objective way. If this data becomes less and less reliable, how will we be able to know that our special education students and all students really, but especially our subgroups who are not performing at the highest levels right now, continue to perform or rather are making progress? So I just wanted to put that out there and say that it's a concern for me. And yeah, that's all I'd say about that. I'll go to Jackie.
I really appreciate the conversation. I know that we've talked about it before, and I just want to reiterate for any community members who are listening for the first time, like education is beautiful and wonderful and very complex. And when you're layering in special education in particular, that you're talking about some of our most vulnerable learners, but those are students who are identified with disabilities that require specially designed instruction through their specialized education plan. And so when we talk about kids with disabilities, we have students who have 504s and accommodation plans. We have students who don't require accommodations in the classroom who have identified disabilities. And so when we look at that data, I think it's really important that not just looking at MCAS, but all of the ways in which we're identifying specific performance. And a lot of that, especially for students on IEPs, that comes in looking at their IEPs and the growth that they make for their specific goals. I think it's important that, we kind of just reiterate that for anyone who doesn't really kind of understand some of the complexities. And that's a super basic way to describe it, but I do think it's certainly a piece of it. And another way that we can measure how kids are doing comparing their own progress to themselves, not to a state standard.
Oh, Jillian, go right
I
ahead.
just had a quick clarifying question. You said, so if we have Nashoba 10th graders who are outplaced and are maybe going to a different school, their MCAS scores, did you say those are still captured in our district data? No, I had no
That is
idea. That's
correct.
very
Yes, that
interesting.
is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions around the MCAS presentation? All right, everyone, seeing none, we're going to move the agenda then, and I will just thank Laura and her entire extended team for that presentation. It was very insightful, as always, Laura.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, Kirk, I think that wraps up the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So we're going to move on now to new business. We have one item here, and that is the always popular DECA field trip travel requests. And I can see that we have Mr. A and Ms. Norton are here with us. Kirk, would you like to cue this up?
You bet. Usually I send this honor to Dr. Boynton, but she'll be coming to the next meeting with us. But yes, I want to introduce to our committee two outstanding teachers at Nashoba Regional High School, Mr. Stavros Andriopoulos and Ms. Kate Norton. They lead our DECA program, and I will turn over them for their annual request for travel for the National DECA competition. So take it away, either one of you.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Mr. Downing said, Kate and I have been running the DECA program. I've been in there this is my 16th year, and Kate's fourth or fifth year.
Fifth.
Wow, time flies. But we have a really great program, and we're excited to do our overnight trips like we always do every year. So we have two for approval tonight. Our States trip is a 3-day, 2-night trip to Boston. We don't know where we're staying just yet. The lottery is usually conducted as we get closer to the competition sometime in December. But it will be in the Seaport area of Boston again, as it was last year. We're working with Mass DECA to work on the final details of that. Our nationals trip is scheduled for the end of April. Kate, you want to help me with the exact dates?
Yeah.
Because
So just to recap, March 12th to the 14th will be our state's competition rather at the Seaport. Like Stavros said, we'll get the lottery options. We are hoping for the Omni if everyone can send us positive vibes that way. It'll most likely be towards the end of January, looking at when registration is due. And then following the states, we'll go to nationals down in Atlanta, Georgia from the dates of April 25th through April 30th.
Yeah, so we're still working on the details for that one as well. I think the lottery is being conducted any day now, and I think we might be hearing officially from DECA what our hotel will be in Atlanta very soon as well. But I know time is of the essence, especially with booking travel, and I appreciate the opportunity to come to, in front of you guys all tonight to get the ball rolling in this process. I'd love to hear any questions if you guys have any questions about the trip or any DECA related questions, really.
Thanks, Stavros.
Yep.
So you guys may or may not know this, but Nashoba has one of the most prolific DECA programs in maybe the entire world. But they do a great job, and many, many kids benefit from this program. It is completely over-enrolled, and we so appreciate you guys getting it there. So this is also one of our innovation pathways. Like a lot of this stuff plugs into one of those to our business innovation pathways. So lots of great stuff happening there. Kirk, we're looking to vote on this at the next meeting. Is that right?
Yeah, we'll place this in the consent agenda next month, but if there's any questions from the committee, we can solicit them.
Excellent. All right, Shandor, go ahead.
I can't find that mute button today to save my life. Sorry about that. I'm a little, it's more about sort of this travel form generally. This is only for overnight trips, correct?
That's right.
Okay. I was curious, are we going to, I think this Friday, there's a DECA conference in the DC Center. Are they going to be there?
We are not going to be at the Fall State Leadership Conference this year. Unfortunately, with our seniors activity and senior sunrise, generally we take our officers to the conference so that they can mingle with other officers, because it's a limit to, I believe, 14 students each per school. So we kind of asked around, and they had decided that their senior activities were more important for the time being. And with the half day in PD, it would be difficult to bring other students with us with the time constraint.
No, that makes a lot of sense, and it's an amazing program. So I'm glad you guys are proposing these trips.
Thank you.
Any other questions,
Madam Chair, if I may jump in for a moment.
please?
I am going to plug our program and let the committee know that annually Mr. Andreopoulos and Ms. Norton host a mock competition at Nashoba Regional High School. I've been able to participate 3 of the 4 years I've been superintendent. Well, there was 1 year I had a conflict. If you remember, Mr. A, it's something that I know Assistant Superintendent friend attends. She even brought her spouse to be a judge for the competition. We encourage any school committee members that can be a part of that team to go through the mock competition to join us. And Mr. A, you'll be sending, I know you send invitations out annually, but I really want to encourage our school committee, if your time affords it, to participate, because it really is outstanding.
Thank you.
Agreed.
I was gonna conclude with that. So you read my mind. I appreciate.
Didn't mean to take your thunder
No,
there.
that's
but
great.
I tried to give you
guys
some
will be hearing
backup,
from me for sure.
Yeah.
All right, I think we are all set with questions. So we'll put that in the consent agenda for the next meeting. And we thank you guys for being here and keeping the program rolling.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. All right, guys, moving on to finance and operations. Ross, what can you tell us?
Good evening again. So now is the time of year that we're finalizing the previous fiscal year, living the current fiscal year, and planning for the next fiscal year. So my first report this evening is regarding the close of fiscal year 25. And within your meeting materials this evening, that is called, sorry about that, I just closed my window. It should say FY25 Final Operating Budget Report. So you'll note that for school committee this evening, that this report encompasses both the expense and revenue sides from FY25. The reason I've chosen to include both expenses and revenue on one report is to provide the full fiscal picture of FY25. In the green section at the top of the report, you'll see the FY25 operating budget or expense side. The expenses last year resulted in an overall surplus of $410,397. Cost centers of our budget that came in over budget have been annotated with footnotes that I'll quickly walk through with the committee. The system-wide budget came in over budget for 3 major reasons. One, as the committee is aware, specialized transportation, which includes McKinney-Vento Act transportation services that are paid from the system-wide account. And this cost center saw major increases, largely due to the number of students, but when transportation goes up and we need more coverage for more students that fall under that protection, it increases the expenses. Also, within this, we saw the increase on school choice tuition out over budget, and our charter school tuition out that we pay as our students may choose to participate in charter schools. You'll see some inverse on that in the revenue report. Also, I want to point out the substitute cost center came in over budget as we increased that budget for FY26 in response to what we saw last year during budget planning. We've made an adjustment there. Lastly, our special education budget, as you're all aware, through the fiscal 26 planning, we saw increases that we've accounted for moving forward. However, notably that while this cost center is still over budget, it did take $1 million of additional circuit breaker to bring that to this level. So next month when I present the revolving accounts, which include circuit breaker, I'll be noting to the school committee that account balance expectations for FY26 that I believe will substantially replenish our circuit breaker fund for future needs. The building-based surpluses that you see are largely due to salary differentials as staff left the district, most often for retirement and new staff were hired. At the bottom half of the page, you'll note that the revenue came in at $959,098 over expectations. I don't want to gloss over the town assessments that obviously came in as expected, as we really appreciate the show of support for our students and our mission. And so again, we thank our member towns for their contributions. Regional transportation, Chapter 78, and charter school revenue. As I sort of talked about the cost of charter school, we also saw a larger reimbursement on the revenue side. All came in over expectations. Ironically, the state did not provide guidance on Chapter 70 adjustment last year that we're talking about this evening, but you'll note that we're doing that now. Earnings on investments continues to perform well. That's the interest that we earn on funds as they await expenditure through the warrant process. So whether it's Chapter 70 or our town assessments, the accounts and the bank accounts rather that those sit in earn interest and have really performed well over the last several years. So that's a benefit noted. So within miscellaneous revenue, we also saw a large boost from a very delayed reimbursement on COVID expenses that were filed under FEMA by all districts. Our office staff, along with facilities, did an excellent job in the FEMA filing, and approximately half of that revenue over expectations due to that work. At the very bottom of the report, you'll see an unaudited snapshot of the district's budget fiscal health at the end of FY25. This is essentially what we expect to be returned to the excess and deficiency fund balance once our auditors complete their work with us and we submit our balance sheet to the Department of Revenue at the end of this month. So at that point, I will pause in case there's any questions or clarity sought.
Any questions, anyone? Oh, go ahead, Scott.
So just to thank Mr. Mulcairn again for sharing all that information with us, and also commend him on the great job he's been doing over the last few years as far as bringing in the district under budget, and even by an increasingly accurate amount. Our under budget amount's been shrinking over the last few years, which is both good as far as how demonstrating how well Mr. Mulcairn understands our expenses and how much we're going to come in at, but it also is kind of a warning sign to the committee as far as what gets put into the excess and deficits every year. So as Mr. Mulcairn gets very skilled at this, the amount of money we put into excess and deficits each year from coming in under budget is shrinking. So I just want to bring that to everyone's attention as we look to have some further discussions about excess and deficits a little bit later on in the meeting.
Very good. Any other questions about the end of your report? Not seeing any. All right, so let's continue on.
Okay, thank you. So moving into the present moment, you'll see the operating budget report as of the end of September for FY26. This is a very early projection as the end of September only accounts for 10% of the school year. Even though we're 3 months into the fiscal year, you all recognize that the majority of our work really starts in September when it comes to expenses. So I'm going to draw my attention first to the obvious footnotes. As the committee will recall, we were able to reestablish the Dean of Students positions by the decrease in our insurance premium that we were able to secure by participating in some pilot wellness programs through our provider. That surplus in insurance, simply put, will cover the expense of the deans that are within the building-based budgets at the high school and middle school levels. Also worthy of a footnote is the impact of the PRISM Early Literacy Grant. The grant allowed us to move a significant portion of our elementary school literacy coaches' salaries to the grant, which has allowed us to use that differential to hire much-needed literacy tutors. You'll see that the literacy tutors are being paid from the Curriculum Cost Center, which is our teaching and learning budget, and overseen by Mrs. Friend. As September 30th is really too early to forecast many of our departments, we do expect to expend our budgets and facilities, substitute special education and technology at this point. We always talk about the winter with facilities. We just don't know what it's going to bring. We don't know what, might need extra attention, and certainly haven't, had a full understanding of who may be out on leave under those long-term substitute needs that come up. So I will note that within the building budgets, and this goes a little bit to what Mr. Powell was talking about, but we simply do not see the significant surplus that we typically saw due to salary differentials in previous fiscal years from retirements to new hires. So during the budget planning process, it was necessary to make those position reductions that you're all aware of, and many of the retirements were filled with existing personnel, thus eliminating the potential salary differential if retirements were filled with new personnel. So again, at that point, I will pause for questions or anyone seeking clarity on the report.
Any questions on that last piece? All right, let's keep it
And
rolling.
could I just interrupt one quick? And I didn't include this in my notes. I'll just point out to the committee now. Those footnotes will be in there throughout the year. I won't explain them to the full extent in future months, but I just want to let you know that we'll continue to footnote those for your understanding, but also just public consumption. So thank you for allowing me to add that in.
Great. Thank you, Ross. We appreciate it. So that is our finance and operations reporting. Now we're going to move over to unfinished business, and we have a couple of things that are expecting a vote from us. Thing number one is the middle school pathway exploration policy. This is going to act as our second reading. I know that policy has submitted in the meeting materials the final version of this policy. And I wonder, well, I'm going to actually just go ahead and move the issue, if that's okay with everyone. So I move to adopt policy IF-1 middle school pathway exploration for career and technical education as presented in the meeting materials.
Second.
Thanks, Scott. Do we have any discussion on this policy? I know that it was pretty straightforward. A few adjustments needed to be made. All right, seeing none, we can take the vote. I vote yes. Scott?
Yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
Lindsay?
Yes.
Jillian?
Yes.
Robin?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Jackie?
Yes.
And Shandor?
Yes.
Excellent. So that's good to go. Kirk,
Madam Chair, if I may.
please.
Just recall, thank you for taking that vote tonight. There's I have to do a certification process, and I'll be submitting that tomorrow to DECA. Our future second readings will always live in the consent agenda. So just know that if on second reading you have any questions, you would make a request to pull it out of consent agenda.
Very good. The next matter in unfinished business is going ahead with the Chapter 70 FY26 budget adjustment vote. And so, Ross, would it be prudent for me to make the motion?
Yes, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay. So we'll start with the motion, everyone. I move to approve the FY26 amended revenue as presented to increase the Chapter 70 education aid by $225,375 to $10,547,898 and reduce the FY26 excess and deficiency appropriation by the $225,375 to $1,174,625. And I know that that was a lot to hear. So what I'm going to do is put that in the chat for you guys. That's the motion.
I second.
Thanks, Scott. All right. So, Kirk, would you like to say anything? Would you or your team, Ross, like to say anything on this, or would you just like to go to discussion?
Yeah, I think Ross covered it in the super report today.
Very good. Any further discussion on this matter and using this method to address the Chapter 70 additional aid that we received? All right, guys. So we're going to go ahead for a vote. I vote yes. Scott?
Yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
Lindsay?
Yes.
Jillian?
Yes.
Robin?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Jackie?
Yes.
And Shandor?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. So the last matter in unfinished business, which I leapfrog, sorry about that, is the capital planning liaisons announcement. So I did hear from two members of the committee who are willing to help act as liaisons in this way with regard to capital planning and be a conduit of communication back to our select boards and capital planning committees in our towns. And so from Bolton, it is going to be Robin. Thank you, Robin. From Lancaster, it will be Jackie. Thank you, Jackie. And from Stowe, I will be the person who acts as the liaison. So Kirk, as you see fit, you can kind of deputize us to be that, conduit of communication. How would you like to proceed?
Mr. Mulcairn takes the lead on all the capital planning conversations with the towns. So as we get to the important benchmarks for those conversations, expect to see a communication direct from his office, and we'll go from there.
Okay, and because the capital planning requests need to be presented before January 1, I assume that any communication will probably be happening in November, right?
Yeah, Mr. Mulcairn?
Yeah, that is correct. So the two of the three town administrators that we were able to meet with this week are aware of the potential for the liaison. So this is great news. And one of the first orders of business will be doing a facilities walkthrough in each of the three towns with that liaison and potentially and hopefully members of the town administration so that we can see the facilities and talk about the needs. So that would be the first sort of reach out for me that they should expect to see.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you for that. Thank you everybody to Jackie and Robin for volunteering. I appreciate it. So the next item here is subcommittee report outs, and we're going to start with budget and warrant because they have developed in their subcommittee meetings an excess and deficiency recommendation for us. And so I'm going to turn it to the chair, and that is Scott. Scott, what do we need to know here?
So we attached a presentation to the meeting materials to kind of give a high-level overview of what is involved in excess and deficiencies in terms of its role in our budget and how it can be used and what the constraints are. So, just in brief, excess and deficiencies is a fund. It's a balance that the school committee has available to it. Usually, presumably, it's an excess when we spend less than we budget for, or we get more revenue than we anticipated. Then money goes into our excess balance. If we ever overspent our budget or we got less revenue than expected, then we might have a deficiency, and we would either need to draw from that excess fund, or we would need to find some other means of funding that deficiency. So we feel it's important to maintain a balance there in that fund as much as possible in case there is unexpected expenses in the district. However, there is a constraint on that. The state of Massachusetts has put a 5% cap on the amount of money that can be in that fund, so 5% of the operating budget. So for the district right now, our operating budget is in the low $70 million a year ballpark. So we would cap out about $3.5 million in the excess and deficiencies. Our current balance there is about 2.5 million. So over the last few years, we've come in pretty well under budget and not used the fund so much that it's allowed us to build up to that $2.5 million balance. So the Budget and Warrants Committee, at the direction of the full committee, has been working for several months now to come up with a recommendation of how we should be approaching excess and deficiencies. And because Mr. Mulcairn has gotten so skilled at coming in with budgets, the amount that we're contributing each year to the excess and deficiencies due to coming in under budgets has been declining. Like in 2023, we put almost 1.7 million into the excess and deficiencies bucket, whereas in fiscal 25, we only put 400,000 in. So we've been using 1.2 million, and even in fiscal 25, we used 1.4 million out of that bucket. So we're in a position where if we're not careful, we could wind up depleting that fund. So the Budget and Warrants Committee is recommending that the full committee adopt a position that we start using less of that fund each year so we can build up for lack of a better term, a rainy day fund, in case we ever do find ourselves in a position where we have less revenue coming in, and that will give us a source to draw from to make up that difference without having to raise taxes as much. So our proposal is that we reduce our use of excess and deficiencies fund by $200,000 per year for the foreseeable future, with the goal of getting our use of it down to zero, so that it's not a regular regular source of funds in our budgets. And the upside is if we ever did get it down to zero and our excess and deficiencies exceeded 5%, then that money would just automatically go back to the towns in the next budget. So there's no downside to doing this, and it just gives us more flexibility going forward in our budgeting. This doesn't require a vote per se, because we're not suggesting that we make it a policy. I think it would just be kind of a thumbs up thing from the committee so that the administration has the committee's view on this as they're developing the next budget.
Great. Thank you so much, Scott, for that. That was very easy to follow. But I wonder if there are any questions, or Kirk, you want to add to?
Yeah, I thought Mr. Powell did an excellent job explaining that. Another way that if we were to reach the 5% threshold and our E&D certification came above 5%, the dollars over 5% can then be appropriated into the next budget, thus lowering assessments to our towns. So whichever methodology is applied, reaching that 5% threshold is beneficial, because then we will be able to adjust assessments or give paybacks to the towns. You might remember last year, Minuteman exceeded their thresholds, and they did that at town meetings last year. They were able to return dollars to member towns while keeping their tuitions at that rate. So there are various levers available to us if we can get to that 5% threshold and maintain it, that are beneficial levers.
Are there any questions about this really complicated topic? So, Ross, can you just clarify really quick? This past year, we were going to use, I just gave the numbers,
1.4. Yep.
1.4
Yep.
million from E&D. We were going to borrow against E&D 1.4 million.
Yep.
Because Chapter 70 gave us more money at the last minute there, we brought that down to 1.2.
Yeah, just under 1.2. That's correct.
And so I think, Scott, what you're recommending is that next year we would like to see the district use no more than 1 million.
That's correct. In fiscal 27, we would encourage the district to not use in more than $1 million from the E&D.
And just to be clear for anybody who's watching too, it's not that we are spending the E&D money, we're just using it until we can put it back at the end of the year when we realize that we haven't spent the money we borrowed from E&D, which has been that hamster wheel that we've been on for a decade more, I'm not sure. Okay, so Ross, do you think that I mean, we take the 1.2 because we need the 1.2. If we don't do 1.2, we would be asking the towns for $200,000 more.
Well, so I would look at it essentially the same way and just potentially say it different. So by using the excess and deficiency fund as an appropriation, as a revenue source, that lessens the need for revenue sources elsewhere, or a reduction in expenses, a reduction in budget. So if we were sort of to rewind the clock back to the middle of March last year before the budget vote, so if you took that status where we were at 1.4 and decided to, at that point, remove 1.4 of the E&D as an appropriation, you would have to find $1.4 million in the budget in reductions, increase assessments to the member towns by essentially that much, and or a combination of both those things. So to what budget and warrant is proposing, we're sort of in a little bit of a jump start here, which is a good position to be in. And I just want to clarify the hamster wheel. So what I would say is we've benefited from being able to return essentially the same amount into E&D and sometimes more. We can't guarantee that. And that's the issue. That's more of the concern. So if for some reason we did not see the same revenue come in this past year, let's say it was 500,000 over expectation, and we had the 400,000 in operating surplus, we'd only be returning $900,000 to excess and deficiency, essentially. So you'd be starting the availability of appropriation $500,000 or $500,000 short for FY27. So if that was the case, our balance would be around 2 million. And if you borrowed 1.4 to cover expenses or to cover revenue, you'd now have a balance of 600,000. If that happened again, you wouldn't be able, we'd be depleting our fund. So to Mr. Powell and the Budget and Warrant Subcommittee's point is that this is a slippery slope to be on, and we've been safe and we've been okay. We've done a good job of increasing our school choice. We've been really judicious and thoughtful about our circuit breaker over the past several years, which helped us for FY25. All those things happening together and working out is great. But again, we can't make predictions always on what's going to happen. So this is really a fiscal protection by paying attention to this for the future. Because whether we start to back off of it now, or we're forced into either budget reductions in the future to balance the budget, or increasing the member towns assessments at a higher sort of accelerated one time, that becomes the issue. This approach, in my mind, gives us time to sort of work within this notion and this proposal to slowly make these changes and do those things of like, do we have potential on additional revenue? Do we have areas within the budget that we're building at that time in the future to get this worked out? So I think it's a combination of all these things, and I think it's a good move.
Okay, I see Kirk's hand.
Yeah, just for clarity, and it may sound semantic, but I think it's an important distinction, is that as we get into the budget workshop, it's the committee that makes this decision, and it's not necessarily the district office. Because what we're going to be doing in the budget process is we're going to show you what we need to run a highly effective educational program in January, mid-January, before what we know what various cost centers are and what anticipated revenue streams are. So I want that to be out there because I think this is why this is why we talked about policy locks you into places that you can't get out of. So having a recommendation is good because then as we bring forward the educational program, we're able to present anticipated revenue along with expected costs. That's when it comes down to understanding, well, can we execute the recommendation? So that'll be all part of the budget process in January and February.
All right, thank you for that. Any other questions? All right, and so because we're on Zoom, I'm just going to kind of go around and ask you guys to say thumbs up, thumbs down, just so that it's vocalized. Scott.
Thumbs up.
And let's see, Shandor.
Thumbs up.
Jackie.
Thumbs up.
Robin.
Thumbs up.
Matt.
Thumbs up.
John.
Thumbs up.
Jillian.
Thumbs up.
Lindsay.
Thumbs up.
Sharon.
Thumbs up.
And myself, thumbs up. Thank you to the Budget and Warrant Subcommittee for bringing this to us. We appreciate it. And thanks to Ross and Kirk for working with them to make it manageable. Any other subcommittee report outs that you would like to get on the record? Kirk, do you want to share something about the building subcommittee?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. We had a monumental meeting last week. It really was one of those benchmark moments in the process of constructing a new school, and that the guaranteed maximum price, otherwise known as the GMP, was voted on and approved by the school building committee, and that it has been submitted to the MSBA according to what the project funding agreement was. So that was a very exciting time for us. And so now we are really into the operational mode of constructing the building. So that's been very exciting. We will be meeting again this November and taking up the question of considering solar energy to augment the energy costs of the building. And then I'll remind the school committee that Ms. Handigan, after that November meeting, we'll be sending an RSVP out to committee members only. We have to keep this to our school building committee and our school committee as government officials to participate in the building walk that we are planning for December.
And that building, I assume, will be winter tight. We will not be freezing.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're about 3 weeks out right now from the full slab on grade being completed. And we are about 5 weeks out from weather tight. So it's very, very exciting. We have some sections of the building that are tight now, and they're working their way all the way out to the most forward section we affectionately call Building A. So when that area is tight, yes, and the heaters are coming, Madam Chair, so it'll be warm inside there as well.
Wonderful. So exciting. They showed us, if you guys want to catch the YouTube recording of that subcommittee meeting, you can actually watch a virtual tour, although you're going to have a front row seat if you can make it to the actual tour of the building. Any other subcommittee share outs? Yes, Jackie.
So based on our current timeline, when we talk about items for the parking lot, we have a few shifts in our proposed first and second readings that I'm happy to provide now, or when you do the parking lot discussion.
You can tell me now. I have
So-
the calendar up.
The policy subcommittee will be meeting with Superintendent Downing and Assistant Superintendent Friend on Monday. We will be reviewing the red line version of policy IKF, which is graduation requirements. We should be ready for a first reading with the stamp of approval from policy for the school committee's consideration on November 19th. And then we'll subsequently be meeting at a to be determined time to discuss the competency requirements for policy IKFE. So that's to be determined, but we'll be looking at a first reading and a final second reading at the December 3rd and 17th.
Okay, so I am just realizing that these are two different things. So you have the graduation requirements, IKE, and you have the competency determination, IKFE.
So it's IKF is the graduation requirements, and the first reading will occur on November 19th.
Okay, hold on one second.
And
Sorry, hold on.
you're good.
So I have graduation requirements, IKF, first reading November 19th. Got it.
Second reading and vote will be on December 3rd for IKF.
Okay.
And then a first reading for IKFE, which are related but different policies, on December 3rd.
Okay.
And a second reading of that policy for the school committee on December 17th.
Great. Because the deadline is January 1st. Excellent. Okay, that's switched. Anything else for policy? No. Okay, thanks, Jackie. Any other subcommittee reports? All right, not seeing any. Thank you, everybody, for that. Speaking of the planning calendar, are there any other things that you would like to see? I can actually, would it help if I shared it? Oh, Alita, you're so good. Let's look at the November 5th. That's what we have planned. And Kirk, the school improvement plans, can you just elaborate on that November 5th presentation?
Yeah, this is our traditional presentation where all 6 principals would be appearing. Our K-8 principals will be showing the alignment of across schools of their school improvement plans, as well as the goals that are specific to their location, and as well as the high school school improvement plan. For the committee's benefit, the approval of the high school plan is memorialized in regulations. We bring all the plans forward as a matter of course. And in presenting these plans to the chair, we have 30 days to vote the plans in, otherwise they're considered approved.
And so should I have that in, we can maybe just put that in the consent agenda on the 19th?
Yeah, consent agenda on the 19th.
Wonderful. Anything else anyone is wondering about?
So can I just ask that we take excess and deficiency off the 5th since we've already covered that this evening?
Oh, weird. Yes. And that district calendar presentation, Kirk, I expect that will then be voted on the 19th.
Yeah, that'll go on consent agenda on the 19th.
Okay. Let's see.
Oh,
'cause
wait,
we-
excuse me. I have to come back. Miss Pock, you're on that committee. I believe the committee is meeting next week. Is that correct?
Yes, on Monday.
On Monday. So what I will tell you, Madam Chair, is let's keep it there. It's possible we won't be presenting on that until the 19th. We already had our first meeting, as I explained before, at the last meeting. So this one should go smoothly, but if we need to move it back to the 19th, I just want to give you that heads up.
Yeah, and I recognize that there's some complexity because of the high school construction project and all of that. So it's not a usual calendar. All right, did you guys notice that YouTube has a second tab up at or not YouTube? Zoom has like this new tab up top. So now I can see you all, even when there's presentation. Do you guys have any questions about the next agenda stuff? All right, I'm not seeing any. And so our triumphant moment, everybody. I am going to move to adjourn well ahead of schedule at 7:57 p.m. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Jackie. Let's take the vote. I vote yes. Jackie?
Yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
Jillian?
Yes.
Lindsay?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Robin?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
And Shondor?
Yes.